Okay, looks like we have everybody here, at least the MVE committee members. So let's get started. I'm Chair Anderson. I'll be your chair and your MC today. Hope you've all had a great summer. Great to have all of you on the committee as well as public here today. So my Fridays this summer were consumed with 10 tag meetings at 6.5 hours each, along with dozens of other volunteers, sometimes 60 or even more people were there. The main agenda item today will be this body reviewing the tag work. So I hope you had a chance to read the letter summarizing the work we did, and maybe you've gotten into some of the proposals if you're interested in talking about them. We spent over 2,400 volunteer hours in the formal tag process. And I guess that many of the more active members totaled at least another 1,000 hours outside the tag with helping to create and craft the proposals before and during the tag process. It was a huge amount of work. And I'm excited about the product of it. So the MVE today is an interim step before the council is expected to send this out for public comment next Friday. So we have today, we also have next Thursday with the MVE in case we need it. I don't know that we'll need all that time, but staff felt that we should schedule it in case it is needed. So just as an overall, where are we in the schedule thing, the council will put this and other codes out for public comment period. And formally it's called the CR 102. And that will open this fall and end 30 or 60 days later. After that, the council will take testimony across the state and consider it and all in the final vote for this and other codes around March of next year. There's a schedule published on the Building Code Council website so that you can all see that if you don't have that. In short, we'll have the opportunity to change the code later with public comment if we want, as we can also take lots of public comment today if we want. I think the tag spent a great deal of time on the code, and I don't know that changes are necessary before the public comment period, but we're here today and we can talk about any part of the proposal, the proposed code that you're interested in. I also want to mention that there was a discussion at the tag of requesting additional economic analysis, so we can talk about that as that goes forward. Does anybody have any questions about the kind of like the overall process and where we are within it today? Okay, we can always go over that later. A few procedural things before we get into today. It's a Zoom meeting, as you know. We will take public comment and MVE comment. Only MVE members can make or second motions, however. Please mute unless you are actively talking. And then please raise or lower your hand if you have a comment. We'll allow some crosstalk, talking back and forth. But if it gets out of hand or if there's just too many people talking over each other, then we're going to request you use the raise hand feature. And for members of the public, I'd like you to do that as well. We follow Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, and we're attempting to adapt that to the Zoom environment. So your raise hand feature is under reactions. There's a hand, it says raise hand. It's not the clappy hand, it's the raise hand. And once, and then it'll put it on the upper left of my screen. Once I call on you, please click on lower hand, and then you will have the floor at that time. And you can say what you need to say. You can ask direct questions of people if you want, or whatever else, and then lower your hand. And that way, I'll call on people in the order in which I see their hands going up, which is usually quite close to the order in which they raise their hand, but I don't always get everything 100% correct. And if you have any questions and you can't figure out the raise hand feature, just shout it out, and we'll help you. Many of you are going to have your cameras off. For the tag meetings, I ask people to use your reactions. Like if you generally agree with something, clap your hands or say, I don't really like that. With only 5 of us on the MVE committee, I don't know that we'll need to do that a whole lot, but normally I look around the room as chair, and if everybody's nodding, then it's like, okay, let's move on. So that can help us go a little bit faster if you use your reactions. So are there any kind of procedural questions before we do introductions and move on? Okay. All right, Krista, I guess you want to do a roll call, make sure.
Okay. Chell Anderson,
Present.
Caroline Traub,
Present.
Andrew Klein,
I'm present.
Todd Bayreuther,
I'm present.
Phil Lemley,
Present.
and that is everyone on the committee. So we do have a quorum present.
Great. Are there any members of the public that want to introduce themselves?
Sure, this is Amy Wheelis from the Northwest Energy Coalition.
Thanks, Lisa.
It's
This is Lisa Rosno with Evergreen Technology Consulting. We provide tech support for the commercial provisions of the Washington State Energy Code.
Thanks, Lisa. Andrea.
Hi, Andrea Smith with Building Industry Association of Washington.
Thanks, Andrea. Kevin.
Yeah, this is Kevin Duell with Northwest Natural.
Chris.
This is Chris Burrows with Puget Sound Energy.
Anybody else, member of the public that want to? Marcus.
This is Marcus Liu, Centrio.
All right, Johnny.
Johnny Kutcher here with RMI, submitter of 2 proposals.
Thanks. Tanya.
This is Tanya Neal with the Masonry Institute of Washington and the Washington State Conference of Mason Contractors.
Thanks. Holly.
This is Holly Towns. I'm a mechanical engineer, having spent my whole life in energy efficiency.
Thanks, Holly. Mary.
Hi, this is Mary Coben, Senior Director of Regulatory Affairs for the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute. We represent more than 90% of the equipment component refrigeration manufacturers in the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning space. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Tom.
Yes, hi, good morning. This is Tom Young with the Northwest Concrete Masonry Association.
Thanks, Tom. I think I've gotten to everybody. Once I call on you, please lower your hand. So you're not still raising your hand. Your arms will get tired if you do that. And that was my one joke for the day. So thank you for all laughing and unmuting. All right, so that's everybody.
I just wanted to introduce myself, Steve Strawn with Gel-Win Windows and Doors.
Oh, welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we have people crying and partying and all that. That's great. Okay, so that is, now it's time to move on to the agenda. That's up on the screen. Are there any suggestions for additions or modifications to the agenda? It's pretty simple. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the agenda as shown.
This is Todd, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, second, further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 I didn't hear Phil or Andrew.
Aye. Aye.
We had a lot of ayes there. Is there an echo going on?
Yeah, aye for Phil Lemley.
Who's that was just speaking?
Phil, do you have both the computer on and the phone? Is that what that is?
It probably is somebody has the computer audio on and their phone audio on, and you got to pick. Okay, well, we'll move on and we'll fix this problem if we need to. Okay, so this is the meeting minutes. This is our next agenda item. Meeting minutes from March 18th, if you can remember that far back. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Okay, we now have approved minutes. We are on to item 4 already. And that is the energy code tag report. And I would like to share my screen. As the energy code tag chair, I have a few slides to show the joy that we went through in the energy code tag. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So this is we zoomed it, and we had sometimes 60 or more people. So this is what we did: is we met virtually, and we wordsmithed, and we saw great presentations, and we struck words, and we added words, and we got to general consensus on almost everything in moving the code forward. So we went through an integrated process, integrated draft, where we mashed up the 2018 Washington State Energy Code Commercial and the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code. And we then included proposals, and those proposals were worked on in the tag process, and then also by proponents outside of the to improve them, along with a lot of other tag members, but not as formal work groups. And that took a great deal of time, and we considered some of these 3 or 4 or 5 times. We had key topics regularly where we spent 2 or 3 hours on a single proposal, such as the heat pump water heating, the heat pump space heating, the carbon emissions, and a couple other proposals that we knew would attract a lot of attention. So you can see up here we have 63 participants at this point, and you can see all the hands raised. You see, and I write them down and call them in the order in which I see them written down. So here we have lots of hands raised, and that's how we ran it. So what are we trying to do? The legislature has mandated that we hit a 30% or a 70% reduction, or a 100 minus 70 is 30. So 30% energy use in the year 2030. And every cycle, almost every cycle, the Building Code Council has paid for an analysis that shows where we are on that path based on the proposed code. Where we are, the smooth blue line is where, if we're doing the same percentage reduction every single cycle. The red line is the painful line, where we do small reductions at the beginning and then very large reductions at the end. So we'd like to stay on the blue line. Unfortunately, the residential code is not quite on the blue line, but it's between the lines. So it's reasonably on track. The commercial code, which is this dark green line, is not even on the painful path. It's way behind the painful path and nowhere near the smooth path. And it is lagged behind. So you can see the numbers down here. If you take where we are now, which is way up here, and you draw a curved line that gets us to the 2030 goal, it's 19% energy reduction every cycle between now and then. So that's what the tag set out as our goal. Let's hit that 19% energy reduction this cycle, so we don't need to hit 25% next cycle. 19% is significant. It includes some significant proposals, but that's the only way to reach the legislative mandate. We also considered that different building types, this is from the same report, different building types have had different progress. So for instance, retail has hit nearly a 50% energy reduction. So it's on track actually to meet the 70% energy use reduction. Whereas multifamily mid-rise was only 22%. That needs to get a bit more efficient. And there's lots of nuance that we could talk about in why these numbers are the way they are. But certainly multifamily mid-rise is a bit behind. Office is kind of right about where maybe it needs to be. Hotels and a few others are behind as well. And this is all in the tag report. So we could put that in the chat if anybody wants to dig into that. It's a great deal of data, and the only touch point that the Building Code Council has with our progress on the energy code each cycle. So there's a couple other considerations we had this tag cycle. One was Clean Buildings Law, which will require all buildings over 50,000 square feet to do audits and potential retrofits if they do not meet certain energy use targets. That is being run by Commerce and is outside of the energy code. Yet, if buildings have to do the retrofits, they will have to comply with the energy code. And it would be a dereliction of duty, in my opinion, if the Building Code Council wrote a code where buildings would be built and need to be retrofitted within the first 10 years or 5 years. That seems like we'd have a lot of irate building owners who would be justifiably irate if we did that. So that's one thing that is another consideration. And then the state energy strategy that was published in 2020, December 2020, is another consideration, and that relies heavily on the energy code for a lot of efficiency in new construction. So I'm just bringing it up so we have kind of the lay of the land. We can discuss in more detail later. And then this is on the agenda and the tag report, and this is basically a summary of all the proposals. We are only going to, almost all the proposals were unanimous or maybe had a few abstentions. There were only a few. The green ones all passed, and you can see what the vote was for each of these here. So 14-1 this one, 11-1 this one, but we spent a lot of time on it. This one was 11-5. This one was 7-5-3, and then 12-1-2 on the other piece of the metric. So the votes are all shown in here. The green ones were adopted by the tag and suggested by the tag that we move them forward. The red ones were minority reports that were both voted down, and there's actually multiple pieces of these minority reports if you want to discuss them. But these were each voted down by the tag, and you can see the votes down here as well. So these are the ones that are in probably the most substantive energy performance advancements in green here, and also the most contentious issues, as probably they should be. Then there were a few others that didn't have unanimous votes. You can see there's usually one in opposition, sometimes two. So these are also ones that were not unanimous. Everything else out of the 146 or so proposals was unanimously approved, denied, or withdrawn. So the tag did a great deal of work to get that forward. And I also want to point out that the first one of this here, the tag tabled it and didn't actually vote on up or down on this one. So I'd suggest that this is the first one we covered today, just so we can deal with it and then hear comments on any of the other proposals that we want. So that is the tag report. Obviously, a lot happened, and we can talk about it when more about the individual proposals if anyone wants to bring those up. Okay, with that.
Kel, this is Todd.
Yeah,
just
please.
a point of privilege here, personal privilege. Congrats and well done to the whole tag. That is a tremendous amount of work, and it's been very well organized and easy to get as much up to speed as possible to prepare for this meeting. So thank you to everyone.
Thanks, Todd. And there were almost 20 people representing different industries on the tag, and 40 to 60 people almost always on the call. So we had many viewpoints represented, and it was a lot of work. Okay, so we probably could consider the drain water heat recovery one first, since that was tabled. That's my suggestion. And Krista, I guess I don't know. This is one agenda item. It's the entire proposed code. As chair, do I suggest which one we cover, or does somebody else need to do that?
It's pretty much at your discretion. If anybody
Okay.
has a specific one they want to bring up, we can do that. But I would agree that we should probably cover the 214 without tag action first. So
Okay, that sounds good. Let's cover that one first.
So, Chell, did you want were you going to do public comment on these first, or?
Yes, and did we invite the proponent or anyone who wants to speak on behalf of this as to what the changes were and why they think it's the best thing ever?
I did not.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah, I guess, Chal, my thought on this one from the tag discussion was there was already a related, or there is a measure in the approved C406 number 206 proposal, right? That is the shower drain water heat recovery. And I think there was some thought that this one could potentially also allow credit for commercial kitchen or laundry heat recovery. But the one that's already in the 206 is already kind of approved and more enforceable and thought out. And I think this one had a few issues. And so I think unless, it doesn't seem like more work has been done on it between the tag and now.
Yeah, this is Chris Little. Sorry, I just joined. No, we haven't modified the language from the previous discussions, but so I guess
you said you did or you did not change the language.
I have not not had a chance to.
Okay, and there was a suggestion that the language should be changed slightly, right?
There is, yeah. I apologize. I didn't know this meeting was happening. They had it on my list for this week. I thought it was a Friday deal. So is this a missed opportunity for getting this one in the mix?
Go ahead, Caroline.
Oh, yeah. I mean, potentially the approved measure maybe during the public comment period could be modified to allow for other sorts of drain water heat recovery might be a good path at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I could take a look at last meeting. We were able to table something and come back to it. I can tinker with it and maybe we could revisit today if that's possible, or I can, whatever other method. It's just not ready for prime time yet.
Todd, it looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, a question, and Caroline, maybe a clarification. Can you say again where you thought there was potential overlap? I didn't understand. Was that in another application or existing code?
Yeah, so we'll probably get to it at some point today, but with the extra efficiency measures, there's a very wide range of changes there. And so as with lots of other proposals, sometimes there were proposals on very similar topics. And so there is already a proposal that was approved in the new C406 measures that has to do with drain water heat recovery. However, as it's written right now, it's limited to shower heat recovery. And I think the intent of this one was to also allow credits for recovery in other types of high use hot water environments like commercial kitchens or laundries. So that would be the only, the goal of this one, which is a great idea. I think it's just a question of whether to address that now or, a few edits during the public comment period could also allow for that to get incorporated. So.
Is there a log number that, as I'm looking through the list, that I could pull that other application up and better understand that? Or am I going?
Yeah, I think it's 206.
Oh, that's what you meant by 206. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so we could vote this thing forward and then modify in the public comment period. The council would then do that. Or we could vote it down and also then bring it back in the public comment period. Or we could table it and consider it later today if we wanted to.
Shell, just do you expect that we will meet next week as scheduled?
I really have no idea. It depends on how many issues we want to, how much we want to relitigate the issues that were litigated in the tag. We could go over them all again in great detail. We could also, leave it to the public comment period to take care of any comments.
Well, I'm personally, I'm okay with tabling it for later today or for next week if we want to give it one more shot and at the committee level.
Chris, how long would you want this tabled for?
I think, so I whiffed on this meeting invite. How long does this meeting run for? When are we slated for today?
It's scheduled 10 to 2.
10 to 2, okay.
You may or may not go. If you could do it in an hour or two, I think that would probably be.
Okay. I could slide back in here. I got a meeting from 12 to 1, but I could slide back in here at 1 and have it good to go by then, if that works for everybody. Or
Yeah, I guess,
yeah, I mean, if the meeting's wrapped up, then I don't know where that puts us at, but I've got a conflict otherwise.
Okay. Why don't we table it then? And I mean, why don't we table it then? And we table it with no specified time, and we can make a motion later to take from the table, if that's later today, or at the next MVE meeting, or at the Building Code Council meeting.
Got it. And if I get it done earlier, can I email somebody, you know, and it's be brought up and debated in my absence? I mean, if the language is good to go, is that a possibility? If y'all
Yeah, email it to Krista. Email it to Krista.
Okay.
And then she can bring it up. And once she has it, she could say, hey, I got an email from Chris. And
Right on.
if anybody
Okay.
wants to take it from the table, we could consider it at that point.
Sounds good.
And Chris, just as you're embarking on that, I guess one question I have is the credit allocations for all the different building types, given the potential other uses, and do we need to involve Reed in that effort, or?
I think that would be helpful, honestly, on all these credits. We didn't spend a lot of time noodling on the values, right? We just kind of stuck what we thought was a good gut value, but they're not, you know, scientifically vetted and run through an energy model or anything like that. So I think that feedback would be beneficial if we could have it.
Yep. And just so everybody else knows, the TAG agreed to adopt 2 rules for the C406 number of points. One of them was that they would be based on carbon, not energy. The other was that they would be based on a 0.1% carbon savings per point, which roughly meant all the credits were worth 6 times as much as they were before. So in other words, the required number of points was 6 times as high, and the amount of points you get for any individual measure was roughly 6 times as high as well. So that makes it easier and makes it able to include in the C406 table items that don't save a ton of energy, but save a reasonable amount of carbon, I guess, and still include those. And then those that save a huge amount of carbon, they can be worth much more.
Got it. That's helpful. So basically the intensity, the points are a little bit more diluted, if you will. And if it's something that felt like a 1, it's now a 6, basically, is the equation.
Yeah, but if when Reed runs the model, it shows that it's a 0.5% carbon savings, then maybe it's worth 5 points. And if it's a 5% energy savings, then it's probably worth 30 points. So
got it.
So I feel like this needs a bunch of work. Is that what you're going to say, Caroline?
Yeah, I guess just I'd hate for Chris to go rush off and do something, and then we're not obviously going to have Reed run a model in the next 2 hours. So just those thoughts in mind.
So we could vote this down today and have it be submitted as a public comment when it has all the information in it.
I mean, that sounds appropriate. What's the public comment dates, like when this needs to be ready for that iteration?
Krista?
Well, the council, if it's disapproved, will formally remove it from the rulemaking docket next Friday. It could be added to the 406 measures in proposal 206 sometime during the public comment period, which depending on when the CR 102 gets filed, would probably be around November, December timeframe for submitting those comments.
Okay. All right, well, we'll take that in mind. I think, yeah, I would not want to rush this through today. Let's get a good pass, and then even if it's as far as November, get it back at that point in time.
Okay.
Okay, with that said, I think I'll make a motion to disapprove this proposal for now.
This is Todd. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, all right. Look forward to seeing this in a few months. Okay. The rest of them, I'm open to anyone who wants to comment and bring up these in any order that they want. I don't know that we need to talk about every single one of these on the list. If anybody wants to bring one up, then let's talk about it. Marcus.
Morning. We had sent Centrio Energy had sent a proposal over to Krista yesterday for 121C. This was regarding C406 credits for district energy or connecting the district energy systems as were defined in the definitions agreed to in the tag. I would request that if the committee deems appropriate, we have submitted a minority report that addresses very similarly to the last one, credits to be awarded kind of in line with the the C406 number 206 proposal by Reed Hart as well.
Okay, great. We'll consider that. And just as context, there were, I think, 3 proposals submitted that would include district energy in the building code and district energy systems, and this was one of them, which was approved, right? And then there's modification suggested.
That's correct. So in the tag meeting, this proposal was approved with the definitions as determined in the C407 proposal. So those were added. Basically, it allows for low carbon district energy systems to for buildings to connect to low carbon district energy systems and meet the exception for C406 credits. However, any language that we had in there regarding the awarded credits was struck when that proposal was approved. So it was requested that we go back, have a working meeting with individuals such as Pacific Northwest Naturals and determine a consensus on a path forward for awarding the credits. So basically what you'll see here is what we're proposing is that we submit a new section to the number 206 proposal for modifying the C406 credits. The section that you see here in red are the definitions that have been accepted already. And as we scroll down, you'll see that we've added the exception language to C403 as well as C404. Yes, correct. As you scroll down further, this is when we get into C406 credits. Any of the black and highlighting after this point is taken from Reed Hart's 206 proposal, and we've implemented additional sections in for consideration low carbon energy. What the consensus of the approach was that if we can show in efficiency improvement of roughly 5%, similar to the TSPR efficiency improvements that were being suggested by Reed, we felt that it was appropriate to award the same amount of C406 credits as was being proposed in the 206 proposal. So you'll see that our line item there underneath item number 4 at the bottom of the previous page matches the improved HVAC TSPR line item number 2, just above it. Yep. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom.
So did Reed do the analysis on the carbon savings for those points, or who did the analysis for that?
So after talking to Reed, he was not believing that a analysis and model was the appropriate path to take. He thought that mirroring and aligning ourselves with the TSPR improvement efficiency percentage was the right way to go. There was
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I understand.
So all the way down at the bottom, we've shown an excerpt from our analysis and our calculation, which we can provide. Continue down right there. And so what we've done essentially is that we've based our new system striving for a 5% efficiency increase on the carbon emissions, like the new table is proposing, for a baseline hydronic plant, much like Reed's proposals as well. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking a plant that has the lowest possible efficiency that will satisfy the criteria set forth in C406 and the definition of district energy exchange systems. And that's what you see here as the baseline. If we scroll up to the block of orange text right here, these are what we've determined as the benchmark line items for achieving that 5% that 5% improvement efficiency. So just connecting to a low carbon district energy system satisfies the exception to be awarded C406 credits, but as of right now, there are no credits being awarded in the approved proposal. So with that 5%, what essentially we've done is, you'll see here, we've gone beyond the baseline definition of 25% annual load met by renewables and no more than 25% annual heat from supplemental fossil and electrical, and we've made that now 45%. Another possible thing that you can do is by reducing, by doing a building-based calculation and efficiency model, you can actually show that your building is capable of greater than 5% efficiency improvement, and claim additional credits that way through a personal model and appeal for credits up to 20% improvement efficiency. So for the heating and cooling systems, we did similarly. We saw that if you increase your renewables from 25% to 45% load, you could achieve that 5% efficiency increase. Further, this could also be done by reducing the amount of supplemental fossil or electric heat load that you're providing to the building to no more than 10%. So that's a reduction from the 25% in the definition, as well as providing heat pump technology with a minimum annual operating COP of 3.0. Further, we also want to provide the opportunity for building applicants to provide reasoning and justification for further awarded credits for greater efficiencies. So we feel that this mirrors the intent and the approach that's done by Reed Hart in proposal 206. And we would ask that this be considered for inclusion in this round with our approved 121C proposal. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus. Let's consider only this proposal at this point. So if your hand is about something else, I have marked it down that you had your hand up. So, and I'll call on you when we get to the next proposal. Or when we are done with this proposal. So does anybody else have comments or thoughts on this proposal? I see Tom, Gary, and Helen have their hands up. So Tom.
Mr. Chairman, I was have comments on a different proposal. I'll lower my hand.
Okay, and I wrote down everybody who had their hands up, so I'll call on you once we dispatch with this proposal.
Thank you.
Gary? Oh, okay. Anybody have thoughts on this revised proposal?
Yeah, I had a couple questions for Marcus. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand, Jill.
10 demerits.
So I think this makes a lot of sense. I think some of the pushback in the tag before had been that there was no additional requirements or improvements shown to earn the C406 credits. And it feels like you've attempted to resolve that. One of my questions was C406.2.2.x, that first paragraph there, not less than 90% of the annual service hot water and space heating load, or not less than 90% of the annual service hot water, space heating, and space cooling load. Are those thresholds all intended to be met independently, or is that intended to be a weighted average? That might be something to clarify there.
Okay. Yeah, I believe that was taken to mirror the requirement in Reed Hart's latest proposal as well. Reason being, I believe, was there was a lot of concern in the last tag regarding people that could make minimum improvements or connections to a system like district energy, and try and claim these credits simply through that connection, right? So this 90%, of the building's annual of what's described here, sorry, is kind of the threshold that we felt was to mirror kind of handling that. And to answer your question, yes, I believe that would be handled independently by the building. The criteria below are for the qualifications of the district energy exchange system.
So like each individual, the district energy system would have to be providing 90% of the annual service hot water, 90% of the space heating, and 90% of the space cooling load independently to be able to qualify?
No, the building needs to be using 90% of their annual load from the criteria below. So 90% of the building's hot water and space heating load should be met by 406.2.2.x.1 or 2 below. So basically the district energy system, in order to fit the definition, must meet 25% renewables and no more than 25% annual heat. And then for the building to qualify for this 406 credit, it must show that it has 90% usage from this exception item.
Okay, so it sounds like you're meaning independently. Okay. I guess one other question was in deciding the thresholds to increase. So C406.2.2.x.1, item 1.1, the 45%, and I think in the prescriptive section or in the definition, that's 25. And so it obviously increased to 45%.
Correct.
But the annual heat input to the system from fossil fuel or electric resistant sources is still, or is 25%, as it is identical in the prescriptive requirement. So just curious why the decision in this proposal is to increase the kind of the waste heat portion and not the fossil fuel portion.
Yeah, that's a good question. What we strove to do was kind of set a benchmark line to achieve this first stage, we'll say, of C406 credits, right? So we're not saying that our intent is not to reduce the fossil and electric supplemental heat. A lot of buildings do still need that point of case kind of point of use, hand washing and things like that. What we felt was that in doing the 45%, we wanted to show that and still keeping the criteria of the definition for the 25% shows that the 5% overall improvement, efficiency improvement, can be achieved. So that's not to say that if they're doing a different combination, such as reducing that 25% fossil or electric and not increasing the renewables, it's not to say that wouldn't also qualify and could fall under the second criteria for an individual analysis. But we just wanted to set a realistic and achievable level for building owners to strive to hit this benchmark to get those credits. So the increase from 25 to 45 we felt was a very reasonable thing to ask them to do.
Okay, thanks. I think those are most of my questions at this point.
Marcus, I have a question.
Sure.
Which is, if you look at 2.3 at the bottom there, it looks like if you had a 20% improvement over code minimum, you would be able to get 4 times the number of credits shown in the table. Is that the intent? So you could get 88 credits under mercantile.
Yes, that's correct. We wanted to leave that fairly open-ended. Reason being is that from our experience, chasing those last few percentages gets inefficiencies gets pretty tough. So, but we definitely wanted to make available the opportunity to claim more credits.
What do you want to do? I want to get them tight. What do you mean tight? The idea for state points is
have the power to make people. It's great. I guess I think that'd be a whole lot of credits, and maybe the efficiency would be justified, or the carbon reduction would be justified by that. But that basically you'd meet your Group M requirements just by connecting to, I guess, a really, really efficient district system, and maybe that's okay.
I mean, I guess I would, in contrary to that, then I mean, is the statement not true for the new credits being awarded for the heat pump criteria? I mean, I believe one of those receives.
You're talking about the heat pump space heating, or
if we scroll up in the table. For like item 15, for example, heat pump water heating.
Yeah, and that's got a big caveat on it, which is 136 has passed thus far, so you would not get credit in some categories for 15 if the current code moves all the way forward. So I don't know. I guess
So-
I'm undecided if that's too many credits for a district system. Is there an example of a district system that would meet that criteria in operation today?
In an ideal case, I believe there is one. We can try and bring up. You know, from a carbon perspective, I believe the Amazon campus, I'm going to say, I don't know if you consider that, you know, district energy.
The one where Amazon exchanges energy with a server.
Data center, yeah.
Yeah.
Across the street, yeah. So, I mean, we're definitely open to I guess, the committee's recommendation on that. I'm not personally sure if Reed Hart's proposal addresses a cap on that at all. But what we felt was that the 5% was extremely achievable.
I guess I'm more interested in the upper range and whether that's a good idea to allow it to do 4x the number of points in the table.
Right. What I'm concerned was that the amount of work that a building owner would need to do to get, you know, to get a 20% efficiency improvement there may be above and beyond the benefit that they see from a building owner stance. But from a carbon offset stance, you know, if you go to full, you know, full waste recovery chillers, I think you can get close.
And is that how that 20% value was chosen instead of 10% or 15%? Is there a system thought that was representative of that?
Yeah, we used our same kind of calculation base and pushed it, you know, kind of pushed it out, right? Kind of without a true model, it's kind of tough to say, but I think, you know, 20% is you know, the absolute max ideal that you would ever see.
Are there other comments on this proposal? Okay, it's probably time for someone to make a motion to either move it forward, disapprove it, or table it or something else. I cannot make motions, just so everybody knows. I also am not supposed to talk about whether I like a proposal or not. Or I can't make motions, but I also can't tell people how to vote or anything like that as chair. So.
I guess, Shel, one of the challenges is it sounds like the analysis and calculations are available for review with interested parties. And I know that this particular version was just posted on the site this morning. So I'm just wondering if a little bit more review of some of those thresholds and the credit allocations given, as you point out, it's not, you know, like we're talking about 5 credits or something. We're potentially talking about a lot of credits being awarded to a project. So.
Mm-hmm. Did I hear a motion to table?
Is that the only piece that, you know, the greater than 5% for the 5 to 20% efficiency increase realm. That's the part in contention right now?
I guess personally,
Question
I'd
for the
also
discussion.
like to better understand the 45% threshold and the 25% from fossil fuel or electric resistant sources, and just how that compares. And definitely, I think the concept makes sense. The credits should be awarded. I think just how much review of those exact thresholds has been provided, given that this particular version was not in front of the tag. I think that's my comment.
I think that's reasonable. Shall we table then?
Motion to table.
I'll second. This is Todd. So, if I may comment. Chair?
Well, after a motion to table in a second, there's no further discussion, according to Robert's rules. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's a
So-
good point.
So we could withdraw the motion and then
No, it's okay.
talk about it, or just, all right, all in favor of tabling, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, successfully tabled. Todd,
No, thank you. I just was looking for confidence that from the other members that there's intent to move forward with this, or to understand it better, and just trying to better understand those pathways, whether your intent was to kick it to a tag or some other pathway.
it's tabled, so it could be taken from the table later today, or next MVE committee, or at the Building Code Council at that point.
I guess maybe my question there is, or this committee could push it back down to the tag for further refinement, right? Or questions?
I would suggest that we don't do that, because convening the tag has lots of things around it, and getting the tag together before the Building Code Council meets and the MVE committee meets next Thursday and Friday would be, I think, challenging.
Perfect. Okay. I was just looking for your opinion on that. So thank you.
Yeah. And what we can do is we can say, hey, Marcus, could you talk to interested parties between now and next Thursday and post a revised or updated thing by Tuesday so that everybody has time to review it. We can say, hey, Marcus, can you do that? And Caroline might be an interested party. Is anybody else an interested party? Okay, so Marcus, do you want
to? I guess my response there would be, we had gotten interested parties from the tag and conferred with Reed-Hart and Pacific Northwest Naturals. Yeah, and then seeing the lack of interested parties, I guess, from this committee. Yeah, I mean, my thought would be, yeah, so since this is tabled, what is the path forward? Now then, we're happy to walk through the calculation with Caroline or anyone else. That's no problem, and then we can kind of play around with the numbers and see how the efficiency numbers change, and that's kind of the thing, right? Is it's very variable based on many different factors that you can change. You can increase your renewables, decrease your losses. So
okay, Caroline, do you want to meet with Marcus?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think also just want to bring confidence, I think, to Todd's comment that, yes, I think this should move forward. Just want to have a little bit more conversation again, given that this is just kind of the first time we're looking at it. That's all.
Sure. Yeah, we apologize for the late submittal. Took a little bit to get everything kind of set and an appropriate benchmark, but we think it's a good level, and any consideration for more credits, of course, has to be done on an individual applicant basis. So we, along with that 20 value, we figured that'd be discussed we figured that the credits to be awarded would also be determined, in that later analysis phase. So.
Okay, thanks,
We can
Marcus.
discuss. I'll set up a
Thanks for
time.
working with everybody at the tag and continuing working with everybody. I think we generally have support, but we want to know more. So thanks.
Thank you.
We will move on to Holly was the next person who had her hand up prior to this proposal being considered. So Holly.
Yeah, hi. I'm reading from one screen, so if my head goes out, I don't realize it. Anyway, hello, my name is Holly Towns. I'm a mechanical engineer who has specialized in energy efficiency in buildings my whole career. I'm also a longtime Washington resident and involved in a lot of citizens groups working to get buildings to net zero to fight climate change. I'm here to support the efforts of this committee to meet their obligation to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases. The Energy Code has gone far in improving efficiency. Now the next most cost-effective step is reducing substantially the use of fossil fuel and electric resistance for space and water heating. And I support and ask you to support the space and water heating efficient electric equipment proposals of RMI. When I worked at PSC in the commercial energy efficiency program, we incentivized new buildings to convert from electric heating to gas heat. It made sense at the time, since the use of efficient on-site gas equipment was emitted less greenhouse gases than producing electricity from coal and gas at a power plant to power heating. That said, this has never been true in many parts of the state where electricity was produced by water. But now fossil fuel on site does not make sense for any part of our state, since all electricity will soon be from clean sources. And now is the time to move away from fossil fuel heating to efficient electric heating to meet the state mandates to combat further climate change. Buildings are the second largest contributor, as you know, to greenhouse gases, with new buildings being very efficient and only a small part of the problem. Making this change will not, therefore, tax our electric grid at this point. Existing buildings are the biggest contributors, and all buildings will need to be addressed in the coming years. It will be far cheaper to make these changes at the time of construction than having to retrofit more buildings. In truth, I don't think the proposed code changes go far enough to reduce fossil fuels. There's a lot of exceptions. But despite the many compromises, this proposal is a concrete step forward to fight climate change. So please support the reduction in fossil fuel or resistance heating in the proposed energy code and move these proposals forward to the next step. Climate change is upon us. So I ask you to support this change for the economic and physical health of our citizens and our planet, for our children and our grandchildren. And I want to thank you very much for your time and your many, many hours of effort to make this next crucial step work. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. The next on my list was Tom Young. Tom, are you about?
I am. I think I'm good here. There we go. Thank you, Chell. Yes, good morning. Tom Young with the Northwest Concrete Masonry Association. I had some comments on two proposals that pertain to the same subject, 207 and 208. So I don't know if we want to bring those up, Mr. Chairman, first, or I can just comment.
Yes, well, why don't you just make your general comments, and unless you want to comment on, are you, I guess, advocating for a few word changes in there, or are you advocating that for something else?
Something else on, especially on 208, but 207, I can talk to it without.
Okay, why don't we bring those up just so
okay,
it's fodder for discussion.
Great, that might make it easier to follow my comments.
Yeah. So 207 first?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, as you're doing that, I'll comment. Both of these pertain to a mass wall provision in the code for certain specific building types. And the first proposal, both come from Department of Commerce, as you can see. First proposal has to do with a modification of the provision that exists, and then the second one we'll get into next is actually removes the provision. So we have actually more heartburn with 208, but let's start with 207. I don't see it on my screen being up, but I
don't see it yet either.
Trying to save time here, I can go ahead and
why don't you just start talking about what
what
you want to talk about?
Yeah, so again, 207 is a modification to an existing provision, and we have concerns about it, Mr. Chairman. We think it's overly restrictive. Really not sure what it does accomplish. It talks about modifying the width of certain concrete masonry walls, reducing them or increasing that from the 6-inch wall that is permitted today to a minimum of 8 inches. The concern there is a 6-inch wall is still a mass wall. So we're not sure why that change would be needed. It should behave in a very similar way. There's another, looks like it's maybe coming up here. There we go. So you can see what I'm talking to right now is item 3. Right now that could be a 6-inch wall. It does require, if accepted, this change would move it to an 8-inch wall. Again, both those walls are mass walls. There's in item 1 there, it talks about exterior cut wall coverings. It's unclear to us, from code language, what that is specifically. Does that mean paint? Does that mean sheetrock? Not clear what a wall covering is. That could be, excuse me, misinterpreted, and can have some concerns about that. It would also require, from a standpoint of sustainable design, just more materials to be added to the wall assembly, and labor and transportation to install and manufacture those materials. If you'll scroll down, there is some cost data that is provided as well. We have some concerns. It seems very low. The costs that are reflected there seem very low. It is earmarked, I think, from 2014 with some supposed factors applied to it. Still seem very low from the cost standpoint and what's presented there. There is an item 6 and 7. If we could scroll down, that's part of the proposal.
It's green.
Yeah,
it's green building codes.
There we go. 6 and 7 actually, I would say, are good clarifications to the provision that we're working with now. So I like those, but overall, we have concerns about the proposal. Think it's, again, overly restrictive and would not support it going forward.
Thanks, Tom. That was 207.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So I guess does anybody else have comments on this particular proposal?
This is Tanya Neal. I'm trying to raise my hand, but I don't seem to know how to do that right now.
Oh, if you click on reactions at the very bottom, it says raise hand.
Aha, thank you.
Go ahead, Tanya.
Oh, sorry. I am Tanya Neal with the Masonry Institute of Washington. And I'm going to be a little bit more specific than Tom was on 208. This committee, well, the entire Building Code Council has taken up this discussion a number of times. And one of the things I would really like is some opportunity to talk with the Department of Enterprise Services about why they're bringing this proposal forward. And we haven't had the chance to do that. And also some of the information they're basing their amendment on. And so I'd like to ask this committee to table this and direct the industry to have additional communication with DES about the thought processes through this. This conversation has been around for a really long time, and I think at least the last 3 or 4 councils has taken this up and came to some solid discussion on it, and left things in place. I'll let Tom discuss 207 because he understands the specifics of that. But for 208 specifically, I'd really like this committee to table it or send it back to the energy tag for updated information and participation by the industry. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. And we did have lots and lots of meetings in the tag, and the proposals were submitted in June. So there's been a lot of time to have lots of discussions. So
respectfully, there might have been lots of time. There just wasn't a outreach to let some of us know that what this conversation was. And again, I have both contractors and bricklayers who are significantly impacted by this, and our economy will be significantly impacted by this. And so I would just like to have the opportunity to really have another discussion on it.
okay, thanks, Tanya. Is there anyone of all the people with a raised hands, please lower your hand if you're not commenting on this specific topic. Okay, Albert. And you're on mute, Albert.
Thank you very much. Okay, so hopefully I'm commenting on the right topic. I'm just reaching back to the RMI proposals and
Oh, we're talking about concrete masonry units right now.
Yeah, sorry. Hand going down, coming up later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joe, real quick, Krista, are you aware we're seeing a green screen? Maybe not, just want to point that out.
It's a nice bright green screen.
I seem to be having some difficulties with the server right now, and my connection is going on and off. So I'm going to try shutting down my connection to the office, and hopefully that'll cure my problems, because I right now can't see any of the Zoom stuff.
No worries. Thank you, Krista. Chell, do you have ability to share?
I guess I could, yes, I could share the screen. There we are. Do you see my screen?
Good.
And then we can go to 207. Lisa.
Hi, this is Lisa Rosno with Evergreen Technology Consulting. We provide tech support for the commercial provisions of the Washington State Energy Code. Just a couple of details just for the benefit of the committee on how we will be communicating to the public about these particular details. What these are, they are exceptions to the requirement to meet the code minimum for mass wall installation. So that's what they are. They're just a straight exception. They do not, elimination or revision of these exceptions does not prohibit the use of this wall type. All it does is it removes the exception for this particular type. And so what a designer could do is they can comply via the component performance compliance path. And so they would have to account for whatever U factor, their wall assembly, whatever value that comes up to be, depending on the construction of that wall. And then they would be able to show compliance with this type of wall. They would just have to take whatever penalty that it might introduce to their UA calculation, and then provide some other element assembly that is a little bit better than code, or to make up the delta. And also a building can comply via total building performance. So that's the only detail that I just wanted to share, is that there is still a path for this wall assembly type in the energy code. Actually, there are 2 of them, but it does eliminate the exceptions that are a straightforward prescriptive path. Thank you for the opportunity to share that information.
Thanks, Lisa. Good information. Mark Frankel.
Hi, can you hear me, Chell?
Yep.
I just want to say, although the masonry industry says that this was a surprise to them and they weren't involved, this issue has been on the table at every code meeting for the past multiple decades. And it's all what was not mentioned is that the problem is that these walls do not perform from an energy perspective up to the standards of everything else that's allowed in the code. And it's been a battle that's been fought over and over and over again. So the idea that this is a surprise to them is ridiculous. But the problem is that these walls actually do not perform at the level, from an energy perspective, at the level of everything else required in the code. And it's been an exception forever. And we're trying to move that industry forward into the 21st century on energy performance. And that's the purpose of these amendments.
Thanks, Mark. Lisa and Mark, you can take your hands down now. Is there anybody else who wants to comment? Tanya, I see your hand up again, but I want to give everybody else a chance to comment on this. Okay, Tanya.
Thank you. I just wanted to orient my comments based on the last comment. I didn't say that we had not been participating in the last decade. We had in fact have participated in the last decade and have had good conversation with updated information, which is different than what has been presented for this particular cycle. And so to say that the only impact is to take away the prescriptive and there are still other pathways is perhaps a true statement. Unfortunately, what's not true is the economic impact to whether or not these buildings can continue to move forward and be built in those other pathways. And so I don't think it's fair to lead this committee to believe that, oh, there's other options and those are completely viable. I will tell you that financially, it is not viable to take some of these other pathways. These buildings that are in this exception, I noted in the early part of the conversation today, these building types, most of them are on track to meet the requirements of the energy efficiency based on other elements. The amount of energy savings that will impact that line that you presented on the chart earlier is so minimal compared to the economic negative to these buildings and to this industry that I think that there needs to be a little bit more conversation other than the fact that our thoughts are ridiculous. And so I take exception with those comments and ask everyone to please include me and others in this conversation. And I would like the opportunity to discuss with DES where they're coming from and why the economic impact is such a big deal to our industry. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Tanya. Luke?
Yeah, this is Luke Howard from Department of Commerce. This is actually a Department of Commerce proposal, not a DES proposal. I just wanted to comment that to add to the conversation put forth by Mark Frankel and Lisa Rosano. This has been a proposal that has been presented to the TAG in previous years. This is nothing new, and Commerce does stand by this proposal and the analysis. The energy savings impact analysis, as well as the economic analysis. I will state that, you know, the economies of it can vary depending on the construction type and the materials used. But it is in our estimate that this proposal, the economics of it are a low to no cost compared to when the proposed wall will be covered anyways.
Thanks, Luke. Todd.
Thanks. It was just a clarifying question. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Young. When you refer to cost, it seems you're referring to first cost, right? The economic impact of first cost is what I'm interpreting. Is that correct?
I was referring to actually both. The first costs that are shown here in terms of the alternatives, but really more importantly, and one of our supporting arguments for the provision that is in the code today is ultimate life cycle cost effectiveness. So that becomes even in the end more important in terms of an analysis. But yes, the costs that are shown here are first costs.
Okay. I also just procedurally, we have 146 proposals in front of us that are on the agenda. We don't need, the only thing we need to do today is, well, the thing we're probably going to do today is move all of them forward to the Building Code Council. We could also do that next week. So we can discuss this issue and do nothing on it, or we could, as a MVE, do something on it today. But if we don't do anything, that's also fine, because eventually we're going to move this whole package forward with whatever modifications we want to make to the Building Code Council. So we can take up issues like this, and we don't need to have a motion to move them forward or move individual proposals forward or do anything else with individual proposals. So what I plan on doing is taking comments, and then if committee members want to make a motion on a specific proposal, they are welcome to. And if once everybody's spoken twice and we have no more speakers on a subject, we'll move on to the next subject, and I'll ask if committee members want to make a motion on it, and if not, then we will move on to the next subject. Court.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a quick comment in support of what Holly Towns said earlier on the space and water heating.
We're not covering space and water heating right now. We're covering concrete masonry unit construction right now, mass walls.
Yeah, I thought you just finished, so pardon me.
Okay. We are very close to, possibly very close to finishing this one. Are there further comments on the CMU proposal? Do any committee members want to make a motion on the 207 or 206? Was it 207 or
207?
207. Are there any committee members that want to make a motion on 207 at this point? Okay. Tom, I know you wanted to talk about 208. Can you
Yes,
talk
sir.
about 208 in a couple of minutes?
I will do my best. Yeah, some of the same comments actually apply there as well, Mr. Chairman. So I'll be quick. 208 have stringent opposition to 208. It removes the provision completely. I term it more of a deemed to comply provision than an exception, if you will. It's a defined system that is deemed to comply. There are other parts of the code that have very similar criteria, but on this one, there's just insufficient information and data provided to support complete removal of this provision from the code. You know, again, I think the cost data, which is part of this, again, first cost shown here, but also, again, life cycle costing, which is very important and required for these code changes, is going to be not reflective of reality. These costs seem very low, and essentially they're not representative. I think another key point here of a wall construction that you would see typically in commercial buildings. We aren't just furring walls out, but typically walls can, and Lisa made the remark, you know, you can still you can still build CMU walls with these provisions. And it does change the economics, as Tanya said, but also counter that point, you can still insulate these walls as well. This provision does not mandate that you can't insulate CMU walls. And when we see that done, it's not with a furring system at all in commercial construction. These are tall walls typically. Furring systems don't work well. So you're building metal stud walls typically behind these walls. And so the cost data here isn't reflective of reality and what types of buildings you would build. We did raise these concerns at the tag level, and we raised some questions about the support information that was provided, and really didn't get much good in terms of answers as far as building type, building size, what was really analyzed here. So we don't feel that it was thoroughly vetted at that level. And it wasn't a unanimous vote either to support. So I'll just close there. If you do require these walls to be insulated, you do lose a lot of the durability and fire resistance benefits of them as well. And it is, again, this deemed to comply exception is for specific types of buildings where it makes good sense to allow those CMU walls integrally insulated to be exposed, again, providing for durability and fire safety that the building owners desire. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Tom. You mentioned the vote. It was for this one 11-1 with 4 abstentions at the tag level. So it wasn't unanimous. Are there further comments on the 208? Do any committee members want to move to do anything on 208?
No, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next. And I'm going through this in the logic here is people raise their hands at the beginning. I'm going to go through that in order in which they raise their hands. They'll bring up an issue. We'll discuss that issue or that proposal, and then I'll ask for motions on that proposal. And if no motions are made, then we'll move on to the next subject. So Gary was the next person who had his hand up. So Gary, are you around? There you are.
I am around.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the MVE committee. I appreciate the time. My name is Gary Hakenen, representing today the Northwest Gas Association. And I'm going to be speaking in opposition to the heat pump space heating proposal 21-GP1-103. And to preface this and to put things into perspective, the direct use of natural gas in commercial buildings in Washington state represents about 3.3% of total emissions. So this very consequential and disruptive proposal, basically to ban the use of natural gas, will only have a minimal effect, if any, to reduce emissions, and it will sometimes result in increased emissions during certain peak heating times. And it will continue over time to push peak electric loads up, requiring additional investments in electric generation capacity and transmission and distribution. This proposal basically bans the use of highly efficient and cost-effective gas options and prescriptively mandates only one energy choice, and has been stated to be one of the only ways to meet the 70% reduction in energy use. A report by the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance determined otherwise, and does show that the high efficiency natural gas space heating can still be used to meet the 70% energy reduction goals by 2031. This particular proposal allows 16 exceptions, 14 of which would allow the continued use of electric resistance heating, mostly for backup. But many of these are going to happen during cold weather, during peak electricity demand, when the marginal electric generation resources will certainly be utilizing fossil fuels and be with the effect of basically increasing emissions rather than decreasing emissions during that point in time. It will This ban would preclude the future use of innovative gas technologies that could provide energy-saving emissions reductions, maybe better than or equal to electric technologies. Again, Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance is collaborating with manufacturers and gas utilities to bring higher efficiency gas heat pumps to market. I might also say that natural gas utilities in Washington have plans and have made commitments to utilize and start decarbonizing their own pipeline by the use of renewable natural gas. Although small percentages today, there is some renewable natural gas on the pipeline today. And finally, we did ask that the TAG request an economic impact statement on this measure and the water heating proposal, which you'll hear about later, to determine the effect on small business and low-income housing, and the TAG chose not to do that. So I guess with these comments, what I would ask is that the MVE committee consider disapproval and move to disapprove this proposal by the TAG. So thank you. Those are my comments, and I'll answer any questions if anybody's got any. Thank you.
Thanks. Mark Frankel.
Thanks, Chell. I want to make a few comments based on Gary's comments about this. First of all, Gary characterizes gas as highly efficient, but actually the maximum efficiency of gas equipment being installed now is less than 100%. It's basically boilers or whatever in the 90s maybe, whereas a heat pump technology has a COP of 3 or higher, which is basically 3 times 300% efficient or what have you. So the notion that gas is efficient is ridiculous in the context of the equipment that's available today as an alternative. The other thing that was mentioned is that we're going to have to increase our peak electricity. That is absolutely right. If we move to electricity, we'll need more generating capacity, but the state has a mandate that generating capacity will be clean. So it's not that we're going to be adding coal plants and dirty electricity to meet the peak. We're going to be adding clean electricity to meet the peak, and storage and what have you, and other technologies moving forward. That's mandated in the state. So the electricity system is getting cleaner. The gas system is not getting cleaner at anything like the same rate. And the notion of introducing 10% renewable gas is pretty far-fetched, really. There's not a good pathway to that, and that's kind of the theoretical limit anyway. So in the end, the electricity system is going to be much, much cleaner than the gas system. Also, I would point out that in the development of this proposal, we actually proposed to include gas heat pump technology in the proposal in the first round before it came before the TAG, and the gas industry actually vetoed that. So even though they say they want to encourage gas heat pump technology, they took it out of the proposal so they could oppose it unilaterally. So that's a bit disingenuous to say that you're promoting gas heat pump technology in this case. In general,
that's a flat out lie. We worked in the TAG to come up with a proposal that includes gas heat pumps.
Chris?
Apologies, but he's just lying. Sorry.
Well, no, actually, I wrote the proposal in the first place with gas in it and was told by the gas industry that we couldn't propose it. So, it's not a lie. It's true. I can give you the old documentation that I submitted in the first place that was disapproved specifically by the gas industry. Be that as it may, the cost issue, we need to include the cost to society of the carbon we're generating and the impacts on society. The idea that it's just about the utility cost is ridiculous in the context of climate change. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Court, you are up next.
Thank you. And thanks to the committee for all this work and for giving me an opportunity to comment. I just want to give a little personal history. Back in 2007, I got together an ad hoc committee of professionals, and we went to the governor and the committees that the governor put together, and ultimately went to the legislature and got the legislation passed that tightens the energy code every 3 years and forces you to do the work that you're doing. I wanted to add my support to the comments that Holly Towns made a few minutes ago. In the clean energy world, we really got to get off of all fossil fuels, including natural gas. Natural gas is not clean. It's polluting the atmosphere. And we just have to realize that the gas industry has to retract their long-held position that it's the way to go for the future. It is not, as Mark Frankel just said, it's hurting all of us in the world on building up those greenhouse gas emissions up in the atmosphere. And as for practicality, I've helped building owners. I'm a consultant to commercial building owners. I've helped building owners realize that electrical heat pumps are the way to go. I'm doing it myself in my own home. It's the way of the future, and we just don't really have any choices. And I'm appreciative of the fact that the gas industry has to make this transition, and it's not going to be easy. But the legislature has already appointed the Utility and Transportation Commission to develop a plan and research how that transition is going to be made. So this is the road we're on, and we've got to get it into the code in addition to the efficiency tightening. So I will appreciate you moving this forward and preventing any future development of fossil fuel use in our buildings, which are in all of our cities, at least, nearly half of our greenhouse gas emissions problem. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Court. Anne Marie.
Yeah, hi, my name is Anne Marie Dooley. I'm a doctor and a member of Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility. I apologize, I'm calling from a hospital floor here, so there may be overhead announcements, but I am speaking to today because building codes really matter to my patients and to public health in general. It was just 8 weeks ago that we had a horrific heat dome over the Pacific Northwest, and over 400 people died here in Washington state, which is more than people have died in any single week of the pandemic. And that's why over 200 medical journals last week said that our climate catastrophe is a bigger health problem than COVID right now. Look, fossil fuels are a luxury we really can't afford anymore. And technology is not going to save us. We have to radically just alter how we live. And that means stopping new fossil fuel infrastructure in our buildings through building codes. And, I've heard arguments from the gas industry and the building trades, the same arguments from the tobacco industry, that the cost is just too much or they need more time. Well, I would ask them to ask those people who lost family members and homes last week in a 2,000-mile trail of destruction from Louisiana to Canada. Look, people are losing their lives. We have the data, we just need to act. Please just remove fossil fuel infrastructure from buildings in your codes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anne Marie. Albert.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much for the time. I'm also going to just speak shortly on heat pumps, both space heating and water heating. And to be efficient with my time, I'm gonna say that I'd like to echo the comments that were made by Holly and proposals presented by RMI. My name is Albert Rooks. I'm the current CEO of Small Planet Supply. I'm also the current president of Passive House Northwest. The Small Planet Supply role has me in an industry position, building capacity for heat pump water heating for single and multifamily buildings, as well as heat pump space heating and cooling for single family and multifamily buildings. I think I'm just going to speak very quickly about capacity building. And currently over the last 12 months, I'd say the capacity focus on being able to accomplish serving loads through heat pumps has increased greatly. It's on a great track. I've been a little distracted this morning because my team just presented me with a rather large heat pump product that we'll be assembling and manufacturing here in Washington State using CO2 as a refrigerant with a capacity of 54 kilowatt, which is huge. And currently that would be appropriate to serve roughly 150 occupants in a multifamily building just in water heating alone. So on the capacity building side, things are really going quite well, and we're all working really hard. And so should the codes kind of encourage this direction, I think industry is really ready to step in and serve the demand. Great, thanks very much for your work.
Thanks, Albert. Johnny. And Johnny is the proponent, just so everybody knows.
Yes, thank you so much, Shell. I just want to echo all the other comments that have been said. When we wrote this proposal, we wrote it because we know that electrification is the way to make buildings more efficient and to get to our climate goals. I wish that we lived in a world in which renewable natural gas was a solution that made sense, but unfortunately, the analysis that has been done has shown that most sources of renewable natural gas are not carbon neutral, they're carbon positive. And because of that, we have to move towards electrification. And the 70% mandate, although the NEA report does indicate that that is a possibility to use some gas, a lot of the proposals in there also show that electrification's a way to get there. So I think that electrification with is the way in which we're going to reach the climate goals for the state of Washington, the Washington State Energy Strategy, and we just need to be realistic with what's possible for renewable natural gas. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. Chris, you are next.
Hey, Chell, thank you so much. And I apologize for before. It just gets a little frustrating since I spent all my summer working on with the proponent of this, trying to come up with a compromise proposal, only to be told that we didn't want to work with people. I just want to make sure everybody's informed that we did. The gas industry spent multiple hours all summer long trying to come up with a compromise proposal.
And I'll echo that. This and the other heat pump proposal. Yeah. There were so many.
A lot of good work
outside the tag to try and make it so that it is the best path forward for Washington and all that. And it was voted for and against by people as well. Yeah. So Chris, thank you for working.
Exactly. Yeah, of course. And basically what I just want to let the committee know at this point is that at PSC, we understand that the future is to decarbonize our energy sources. And we coming up with a plan. And it was mentioned, I forget by who, that there's our legislative directives to come up with those plans. And we are coming up with those plans. We're coming out, we're doing studies, we're figuring out what the cost is for the various ways of getting to our shared goal of decarbonizing our energy supply. I had the opportunity last night to meet with some of our transmission engineers, and I just wanted to share a couple highlights of what he told me about the different costs. So basically the analysis we ran at PSC was what by 2040, what the cost to our electric system. So this does not have to do with getting the supply of the green power. That's a whole different subject. This is the cost just of the distribution system to replace the BTUs that were taken up by natural gas and natural gas heating sources. So we did one analysis where we did a straight high electrification in lines with what this proposal would do, where we're getting rid of gas, we're just going all electrification. We did a second proposal where we called it our carbon out way to go. And what that does is that focuses on both backup, gas as a backup, and gas, as well as electrification, beneficial electrification throughout the systems of the utility systems. I don't know how many of you guys know a lot about utility transmission systems and distribution systems. There's a lot of intricacies on each system. And so any kind of electrification would be best done by looking at the individual systems and seeing where electrification is done instead of taking a hatchet and just saying we're going straight electrification. So anyway, to get to kind of what I'm talking about, that there's in order to go to high electrification, here's some a little bit shocking numbers, at least shocked me. If we go carbon out strategy, where we're trying to keep a gas system maintained and working, we would need to build 21 new substations around our service territory, just in Western Washington. Compare that to high electrification, we have to build 116 substations to meet that electrification need. We also have the distribution service transformers. we would need to install an additional 75,000 of those either little green boxes in front of your house or white cans up on the poles. Those are distribution transformers. We have to install an extra 75,000 of those. But like I said, we want to go with school. We want to be partners and work forward in a positive manner on this. And it's been a little frustrating all summer long, you know, not that nobody really seems to want to actually work with us and try to figure out a way to get to our shared goals of greening our electric system. The last thing I'm gonna leave you with is we are in a certain area, we are in a big area of unknowns right now in regards to our energy system. We're making a lot of changes. We just did CETA. We're seeing what the ramifications that are. There are a lot of unknowns out there. And so to add this into that pile risks doing some irreparable damage to systems based on, because we have no clue what the already passed rules, their effect that they're going to have. Now we're going to keep adding more. I would say let's kind of take a slower approach. We can get to 90% of our energy. I would encourage all of you guys to read the minority proposal for the space heat. Basically, it's the exact same proposal that RMI submitted, except it allows for gas heat pump water heaters, and then anywhere where electric resistance is used is an okay supplement or replacement. It allows gas in that situation. So it's a very light changes to that proposal from RMI, and I think at this point it would be the best next step to kind of getting to the green future that we all want. And with that, I'll leave you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
I
Gary,
just need to comment on that if I may, Chell.
Court, I have you down a little bit later. So if you pencil down your comments on that, you're on the list. Gary is up next.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And I'll try to be brief. Johnny mentioned studies done. A couple of comments. Electrification is the only way to go. And that renewable natural gas in some way is a carbon positive rather than carbon neutral, carbon negative. Referencing studies that have been done, we certainly have also seen studies that show just the opposite of that maintaining a natural gas system can help us meet the goals for decarbonization, and that there's huge technical potential for renewable natural gas. Oregon Department of Energy, as a matter of fact, did a study a couple of years ago that indicated, and it granted technical potential, but a technical potential for renewable natural gas that could serve all of the residential gas heating load in Oregon. So to say that renewable natural gas is not a viable option is just wrong. And so I will stop my comments there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gary. Lisa, you're up next.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. I'm just going to make a brief comment as a voting member of the Energy Code TAG. I just want to make a statement in support of both proposals, and particularly in support of the proponent and the proponent's efforts. And there were two large working groups that were assembled for both of these proposals. So many people were offered the opportunity to contribute their feedback to both of these proposals. And as you've noted, they went through multiple updates to try to address the concerns of various different areas of the industry. And so this is just a brief statement in support of just the effort that went into these proposals. They're very well thought out, and we are in support of both of them. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. And I'll point you to the upper right of the screen, and you can see all the revisions that were made as a result of the working group that Lisa mentioned. Dwayne.
Thanks, Chell. Just wanted to respond to a couple things that have just been said. One of them being regarding the option for renewable natural gas to be part of the mix in the future. these code change proposals largely impact existing construction. So they're not requiring us to go back and upgrade the whole universe. And if new technology or if a large proportion of renewable natural gas shows up in the pipelines in future code cycles, we can certainly adapt the code to recognize that. Meanwhile, between now and then, without any substantial RNG on the pipeline, we'll go ahead and build with electrification. And that also applies to the statements about the grid. Yes, it's going to be a tremendous undertaking to transfer all of the existing buildings that are fueled with natural gas to electrification over time. And yet this proposal does not require that. So it's going to have a gradual impact, and we'll have opportunities to modify as we go forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Dwayne. And the numbers I've heard are like, what, 2% a year is new construction?
Maybe 1%.
Maybe 1%. So, okay, Amy.
Thanks, Jill. Everyone, my name is Amy Wheelis, and I'm with the Northwest Energy Coalition. We're a public interest nonprofit working in the 4 Northwest states, and I specifically work on energy efficiency policy. And I also serve as the public representative on the Energy Code tag. And I just want to first commend the whole body for the massive amount of work that we went through this summer, but especially Krista. So thanks, Krista, for all your work. So just responding specifically to Chris's comments from earlier, I definitely appreciate the challenges of moving forward on electrification for the electric system. Our organization is specifically working hard, including with Puget and as well as our utility members, on the best ways to green our energy system, recognizing that there are likely some technologies that could be developed or could be more developed that are not electrification. However, the proposals on the table here are, as Dwayne mentioned, not economy-wide electrification. This is focusing on some new buildings that will be coming online, likely after 2025, given permits wouldn't be issued until this code goes into effect in 2023. And just stepping back, I think many of these proposals were worked over by multiple people to come to a place of consensus. And in some cases like this one, the group wasn't able to reach consensus. And I think that's natural. This overall body has some direction from the legislature to push the energy code to be more efficient and away from fossil fuels. And I think there will be disagreement on the best way to get there. But I think I urge you to move the full package forward for public comment. We've all had lots of feedback and conversations, and I think it's time to hear from the public on these issues. So thanks for your work, and thanks for the time.
Thanks, Amy. Court?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to follow up very briefly on comments from Chris Burrows with PSE. I've been working along with the Northwest Energy Coalition and several other groups with PSE for 6 years now, trying to help them make the transition. In short, they've been slow to listen, and they keep over projecting the demand in the future, and therefore saying that we have to build a lot more infrastructure than it's really immediately needed. And I'm glad that Amy and others have pointed out this code impact is going to be very slow, very minimal over time. So there's no reason to slow down and hesitate, as PSE is suggesting today. They've been slow, and they need to speed up, not slow down the process of this kind of code legislation. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Court. Chris, you're up.
Yeah, I would just want to, just a real quick, multiple people have said that this only affects new construction, but pretty much everybody here knows that that's not true, that this goes to, if you're replacing your HVAC system in an existing building, you have to bring it up to code. So there is a lot more impacts than just on new construction.
Thanks, Chris. Johnny.
I just wanted to talk again, and I apologize before when I spoke. I failed to kind of explain that RMI is an independent nonprofit working to shift towards a low carbon future. Regarding what Chris just said, for alterations, there's been a lot of exemptions made so that for both the heat pump and heat pump water heating proposals, where it is not economical, on where it would not make sense for an existing building that would be going through a renovation to electrify it, we try to make very rational and sensible exemptions and work very hard with a lot of groups to basically make it so that we weren't going to be burdening anybody with this code proposal. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. Chris, do you have a quick comment?
Yeah, real quick. Krista, can you roll down to that section C503? It's down page, I think, down towards the bottom, second to last page, where we talk about this exemption. And just reading that, it says where all new mechanical systems in existing buildings, including packaged unitary and split systems, shall comply with section 403, except as noted. And the exception is where one heating appliance is failing and you're replacing it once, and you can only do that once every 24 months. So
Chris, I think there's another version that has the revisions to C503 that are not in the version that's currently being shown, because that was a later.
That would be helpful,
amendment.
yeah. Well, yeah, because I just clicked off of the one from that came with this meeting invite, and it just has that little small exemption at the bottom.
Yeah, I think on the master list, there's a couple other hyperlinks under the tag action column that have some of the other iterations as well.
The original proposal is kind of in the main column, and then there's revisions to the
okay, cool.
tag action, and so that's where you'd find that in it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. So seeing no further hands up, I want to pause for a second and see if the committee wants to make any motions towards this. If no motions are made, then this will probably eventually be moved forward to the Building Code Council. Todd.
Joe, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm not going to make any motion. I think it clearly needs to move into public process at the committee, at the full council level. As the East Side representative, I was asked just to verify. For everyone, I'm not on the energy tag. So for the MVE members that are also on the energy tag, it is your opinion that East Side interest, both energy efficiency and distribution, was well represented on the tag? Just an opinion.
I'm the only member of both the tag and this particular committee, but we have, I don't know, probably 8 or so tag members on the call today. I don't know if you're asking me specifically, or if anybody else.
Just an opinion, and then if not, then what can we do to make sure that as it moves into the council level, that we'll make sure that those stakeholders are informed.
Let's see, we it's a Zoom making it easy for people on the East Side to participate. There were entities from the East Side that did participate, tag members from the East Side as well. And for this particular proposal, there was only one vote against it. So it was 11-1, or, I mean, it was, you can see it on the voting sheet, but it was 14-1 unanimous, and then 11-1 for the various votes on it. So with the tag having some East Side members, I can't say who voted for which East Side members voted for it, but it was certainly the attempt was to be a very inclusive process of the entire state.
Yeah. Oh, and nothing implied there. Just fair question for representation. Thank you.
Yeah. And I see Chris, you raised your hand. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to answer Todd's question. I remember we had a couple comments from East Side contractors, but I feel like we could probably use some more input from that side of the mountains on, especially the heat pump around, sizing and temperatures and things like that. But we did have a couple comments during the tag meetings.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay. Does any committee member want to make a motion on this? Okay, let's move on to the next subject, and you know, in retrospect, maybe we should have gone in order through each of these just so we cover them all. But I had no idea whether we would have a great deal of interest on each of these or not. So the next person that raised their hand at the beginning was Helen. So I'm going to call on you, Helen, if you're still around. Maybe you're not. I'm not seeing your name here.
Helen had to drop off for another meeting, but she should be on within the next couple of minutes. She dropped off about an hour ago.
Okay. Johnny was the next person with his hand up at the very beginning. So I don't know if you wanted to address a particular subject, Johnny?
I have no further comment at this point, just hoping that we'll pass these two proposals to SVCC.
Albert had his hand up at the beginning as well. I don't know if there's a subject you wanted to bring up. Albert Rooks.
Sorry, no, I think I've made all the comments I'm going to make today. And lastly, as said earlier, really appreciate your work over the summer.
Thanks. Court, you had your hand up at the beginning as well. I don't know if there's an issue in specifically that you wanted to bring up.
Already commented. Thank you much.
Okay, great. And Anne Marie was the next person at the beginning who had their hand up. So if you wanted to discuss a particular proposal, Anne Marie. Okay, Chris Burrows.
I just wanted to add a couple comments specifically to the heat pump water heater proposal.
Okay.
Just
You
I hope I can.
that up? You want to bring that up, Krista?
So while she's bringing that up, it's just general. I just want to give my input on this. So just give a little background on what I've done. I've spent 20 years of my life in the energy efficiency world, trying to get new products on the market that save energy for people. The last 6 years I've spent working specifically to try to do that with heat pump water heaters. So I do have a lot of on the ground experience with heat pump water heaters and try to making them work in the Northwest. Obviously, over the past 6 years, that has been a residential focused project because there have been very few to no commercial heat pump water heaters available. And I guess that's, if there's one thing I can impart on you, is that's my big worry about this proposal, is that the technology for heat pump water heaters just isn't ready for prime time. One thing that I kind of thought about as this proposal was coming through was a company called Air Degenerate, who made residential heat pump water heaters back in 2010, 2012 time to, late 2000s. And utilities got really pumped about this technology to save energy for everyone, and pumped it and got on board and started getting these products installed in customers' homes. Well, a year into it, massive problems on recalls. Technology was not ready for prime time. Ended up having all the utilities ended up having to pay to replace people's water heaters with something that would work for them. And continuing to this day, that mess up has delayed the market for heat pump water heaters. And my big fear, or one of my big fears on this proposal, is now we're not just trying to entice people to do something, we're forcing them to do something that may not be ready for prime time technology wise. And that could have huge ramifications on the future of actually trying to get heat pump water heaters into people's businesses and homes. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Kevin, you are next. And so Krista, I see, I don't know if your screen is frozen. I don't know what anybody else sees, but is this the heat pump water heating proposal, which is the one we're talking about now? I think it's the space heating proposal that we see on the screen.
That's what I'm seeing, yeah.
I must be frozen because what I've got up is the water heating one. Let me see what I can do. Hang on.
You want me to share my screen, Krista?
That might be a good idea. It looks like I just lost my screen again.
Oh, no.
Dang.
Okay.
I don't have controls.
Okay. So do you see my screen right now?
Yes.
And I'm going to bring up the heat pump water heating 136 and the latest one right here. So let me know if there's a part of it you want to talk about.
Oh, thanks, Chair. I just speaking in general, and yeah, I do appreciate the work that TAG has put into this. Just for the record, this is Kevin Dewell with Northwest Natural. A couple concerns with the water heater proposal. One, I'll echo what Chris said, but there are certainly manufacturers of the equipment. We've heard of many projects being done in California in particular, and Washington as well. But it appears there's only a couple manufacturers, what I would consider top grade manufacturers for the equipment. Mitsubishi for one, for the larger scale commercial grade equipment, but also A.O. Smith for like a smaller tank type commercial unit, reminiscent of a residential style unit. And as you may have noticed in the voting on this measure, that was a 11-5 approval. Part of the reason for that 5 vote was concern from industry about specifications for projects. There are projects being designed right now that will be hitting the permitting process when this code comes into effect. And as a design engineer, that's the majority of my career, I needed to have multiple manufacturers to specify, particularly for a public bid project. I think the law requires 3 manufacturers. A lot of private bid projects require the same, just for economic competition. And I'm not seeing that many manufacturers. The technology I think that Mitsubishi makes is solid. It's just, I don't think the market is fully fledged out. And another concern is there was a lot of work done on this, and the proponent certainly deserves accolades for the effort put into this. I was on some of these work groups too, sub-work groups. But there are other ways to go here, and one that it is the minority report is a gas-fired heat pump water heater that advances the efficiency from the federal minimum of, I believe, 82% to 124%, which would be in line with that 19% per code cycle improvement in efficiency. The advantage of that technology is flexibility. That is the ability to upgrade an existing system that is gas-fired and not require more area for tanks and other equipment, or a larger service perhaps. I know this proposal does allow exceptions, many exceptions for complications, but a direct change out is always easier than a retrofit of a new technology or a new fuel system. It's also a concern that, I mean, in the proposal, it's stated that this will have a life cycle cost increase to a project. There's concern how that might affect a small business, particularly a minority-owned business. And there was a proposal presented to the TAG to have an economic analysis through the Washington Economic Impact Bureau. I forget the proper title of the group, so I apologize. And also a equity impact analysis. And I would suggest that those are still in order. This is a major change to the code, and with impacts that are, I would suggest, not foreseeable without more analysis. So thank you, appreciate the time to make the comments.
Thanks, Kevin. Albert, you're next.
Hey, thanks. I want to kind of reach back to the prior comment and the one made by Chris. Implementing heat pump water heating in the Pacific Northwest does bring up some questions. But I think the last 6 to 7 years of research by Ecotope and others have answered a lot of those questions. And I think the capacity and the servability has been confirmed. We, as a company, we're providing large building heat pump water heating projects using CO2 refrigerants in both Vancouver, BC, California, Washington, and Oregon. The capacity, although global logistics have provided some challenges in production of units and delivery of units, that seems to be waning and things seem to be kind of catching up. The Advanced Water Heating Initiative by Bonneville Power Administration and other stakeholders have really coalesced a lot of solutions and manufacturers, including Mitsubishi, who's bringing a 40 kilowatt unit to market. There are no less than 3, I think 4 CO2 large building water heating solutions coming to market. So I think we're going to see plenty of choices, and we've already confirmed reliability on cold temperatures as cold as we can find them in the state. Temperatures and loads really aren't an issue in Washington state. They're an issue maybe in the very northern part of British Columbia, about 12 hours drive north of Vancouver, BC. So I don't think it's appropriate to just reach back to the air generate issue and just say heat pumps aren't really ready for prime time. I think a lot of people have done a lot of work to confirm that they're ready and that we have a lot of data to show that they're ready. And giving industry a little bit of demand would help us ensure increase in capacity and servability. The water's hot. It's okay to climb in. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Albert. Mark Frankel, you're up next. And then just, I'd like to take a break in 10-ish minutes or so, or 15 or 20. So just letting you know a break is probably coming up at some point. So Mark.
Thanks. I'll be super brief. This is Mark Frankel from Ecotope. There were some questions raised about ready for market and availability and so on. I'll just lay some facts out for you. Ecotope designed our first central heat pump water heater system for multifamily in 2009. We've designed over 70 systems since then at commercial scale. We've worked directly with manufacturers to bring this to market. There are 4 that have been through the official California code approval process for commercial heat pump water heater systems. There's another 4 or 5 in the wings. There's 6 products on the market right now that are used extensively. There is not a question of availability. There's not a question of choice of manufacturers. And then finally, to the comment about East Side representation, I will also point out that one of the commercial heat pump manufacturers is actually located on the East Side in Washington. So we have local manufacturer even for this equipment. Thanks.
I think Todd wants to ask a question about that.
No, thank you. And I appreciate that kind of comment. And in fact, I was just going to raise that maybe now, not to solve today, but for stakeholders to think about as this moves to council is I would love to see manufacturing capacity or potential within the state. Maybe this is a Washington Commerce type question, but I'd like the council to hear more of that potential. By the way, I'm the manufacturing representative on the council, so that's very important to my consideration. So thank you for that.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mark and Todd. Court, you're next.
Yeah, I just want to second what Mark just said, and Albert, it is time for this. We've got the capacity. It's just a matter of getting the distribution network up and running and used to doing it, and people getting educated about availability. Thanks much.
Thanks, Court. Chris Burrows.
I would just caution everybody, A.O. Smith just released their first unitary one, I think in 2019, unitary commercial heat pump water heater system. And that while these specific multifamily centralized systems have been custom systems, have been worked on for a while, there's still a long ways to go in the heat pump water heater market to make it where it's something we should be forcing people to do.
Thanks, Chris. Dwayne, you had your hand up, but I don't see you anymore. So Lisa.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to make a brief comment with regards to how this provision, proposed provision, applies to existing buildings. I participated in the working group for that, and is in our opinion that the language in there is very reasonable. There's a lot of flexibility with regards to when this would be required in an existing building. So I just wanted to comment on that specific detail in the proposal. We feel that it was well developed, and I think it gives the jurisdictions the flexibility that they will need when they are addressing buildings that are upgrading their surface water heating systems. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, I'm not seeing other hands up. Brian Ahey.
Hey, good afternoon. Brian Ahey with Bradford White Corporation, which is an American-owned full-line manufacturer of residential, commercial, and industrial products for water heating, space heating, combination heating, and water storage. Our company has been recognized as an Energy Star Partner of the Year in both 2020 and 2021. And we appreciate the opportunity to participate in the process. And as a manufacturer, we support Chris and Kevin's comments and share their concerns as well. Part of what needs to be considered is that we were talking about, as a manufacturer, is there availability, number of manufacturers that are out there, the training of installers, plumbers, architects, engineers, and builders. This does need to be considered for this proposal. We would also ask what other exceptions have been considered in this proposal. The proponent points to California REACH codes and the 50 cities that have adopted all electric. We would like to note that those same 50 cities have included exemptions, which include healthcare facilities, essential facilities, industrial facilities, scientific laboratories. If the applicant establishes that there is not an all-electric prescriptive compliance pathway for the building under the energy code, or that the building code is not able to achieve the performance compliance standard applicable to that building under the energy code. So we'd like to make sure that those are addressed with this proposal. The proposal also has a GWP requirement, which doesn't parallel what's currently out there for CARB or AIM. We'd like to see that be in tandem or match what is currently out there. And we'd just like to say that as Washington State approaches the 2031 State Energy Code reduction to achieve a 70% reduction in annual net energy consumption, that this can be done in incremental steps and to not apply a one-size-fits-all electrification approach to commercial buildings for the entire state of Washington. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. And if the committee today doesn't act on your recommendations, you are welcome and encouraged to submit any of those as public comments when this goes to CR 102 process. Johnny.
Yeah, just wanted to say, like, I actually can show if it's useful, like every single ordinance in California, it's a hodgepodge on which facilities are required, but there's at least, I'm counting 15 cities that have gone for every single occupancy type requiring all electric. Some give exemptions for restaurants and some give exemptions for laboratories. I don't see hospitals here, but I do have the information. I'm more than welcome to share it to anybody that's interested. And just another comment on the Washington State Energy Strategy shows that we need to get to 40% market share by 2030 to to have the least cost strategy in order to reach our climate goals, we need 40% of our water heaters being sold being highly efficient heat pump water heaters according to their electrification scenario, which is the least cost strategy. I don't really see how we're going to get there without starting on new construction. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. Do MVE committee members want to make any motions on this proposal?
No, for me, thanks.
Okay, let's take it's 12:20. Let's take a 5-minute break and come back here at 12:25. See y'all shortly. Hey, everybody. Krista, are you back?
I am.
All right.
I can try sharing if you want, or Zoom crashes on me again.
Yeah, why don't you try sharing? And if I see it just freezing, I will just share my screen because I do have the same documents. But I get a little distracted when I have to share a screen and try and organize everything. Okay, so we have talked about 214, we've talked about 103, 136. Are there other issues, or we've also talked about 207 and 208. So are there other, that's my cat. Are there other issues that people want to bring up, public or MVE committee members, about the proposed code changes? Or if not, we can entertain a motion to move the package forward as it was sent to us.
I guess, hearing no other comments, Chell, I'd make a motion to move the current proposals as we receive them forward to the State Building Code Council.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion? We have Philip on the line. We also have, is Todd on the line? I guess not. And Andrew appears not to be on the line either. So Philip Lumley, are you on the phone? Are you here? Maybe that was too short of a break.
Yeah, I'm thinking that people might not be back from what they thought was 5 minutes.
Yeah. I think some people's idea of 5 minutes is not what my clock's version of 5 minutes is. Okay, why don't we just wait a couple minutes, because I'm not seeing lots of hands up, and we need a motion, and we need a second for that motion. So let's wait a couple minutes. Anybody want to play some music? Philip Lumley, are you, I see you unmuted yourself. Are you about?
Yes.
And Todd, are you about as well? I see you muted and unvideoed.
Kyle, I need to leave at 1. I've got another meeting with the legislature starting at 1.
Okay, I appreciate that. So Caroline made a motion to move the package forward as submitted to the MVE committee. And you were on mute. Todd was also on mute. Do you want to second that motion, or do you have another idea?
I would second that.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Is there further discussion? Okay. I'd really like it if Todd was here. Todd, are you around for the vote? Okay, well. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Marcus, I see your hand up for further discussion, I guess.
I just wanted to ask, with our proposal being tabled and this being proposed to motion to move forward as provided, does that close any opportunity for us to, for further discussion on that one? Or can that still be discussed next week?
Well, if we move forward to this motion, we will not have, my understanding is we would not need a meeting next week. And so it would be brought forward to the Building Code Council on the 17th of September, where it could be adopted or whatever, where action could be taken on it at that point. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. I guess I'd really like it if Todd was here. Todd, are you around? Okay. Well, let's take a vote on this with the three of us that we have in here. Krista, do you want to do a roll call vote?
Sure. Chell?
As the chair, I'm not supposed to vote unless it's a tie, but I guess I need to, so I'll vote yes.
Caroline?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Todd, are you there?
Andrew just joined us as well.
And Andrew Klein? So we have 3 yes and 2 absentees.
Yep, I guess I'll do one last call. Todd or Andrew, do you want to vote on this? Well, I guess, yeah. Okay, motion passes 3-0 with 2 absentees. So this is being moved forward to the Building Code Council. And Chris, as far as I know, we don't really need to meet next week. Is that your understanding?
That would be my understanding, yes.
Yep, okay. So I guess we are on to the next agenda item, other business. Nobody identified other business. Okay, is there anybody who wants to propose other business? Okay, well, thanks everybody. Thanks to the TAG and especially Krista and the MVE committee and all the public who provided input now and in the past. And I will, unless we need to schedule another MVE committee, I will see all of you MVE committee members at the Building Code Council on the 17th.
Thanks, y'all.
All right.
Great.
Thanks
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.